Hey everybody, I'm Marcia.
And I'm Meghan, and welcome to HR After Dark.
Woo, we're back again.
Woo, back again.
Oh, hey, we didn't wear the same outfit today.
No, but I noticed that you have a cocktail that looks very delicious.
It is delicious. It's quite, well, it is HR After Dark, sister.
Oh, I love it.
So, you got a few more months.
Yeah. So usually we match, I would say like 4 days a week. Sometimes.
Without even calling each other.
I know. I don't have a blue leather jacket though.
Not yet.
So not yet. I do have a blue suede, so we're getting close to there. So that's another topic we're going to talk about in another episode. Is like you're
attire.
The way attire and the dress.
The dress code has completely changed when I graduated from college. So
I can't wait to talk about that. Yeah. Very exciting topic today though. I am going to use my notes for this one because you know how I can go rogue and kind of go
what?
All over the place.
Rogue? Squirrel? What? Sorry.
Someone will listen to this and be like, next.
I know.
We're going to talk about the evolution of work and adapting to generational shifts in the workplace.
Okay.
And I want to talk about the different generations, and I want to use my notes to make sure I'm specific on my facts.
Okay.
And like, as we know, the four primary generations in the workforce from boomers.
Baby boomers.
Yep.
X's.
Yep.
Millennials.
Yep. Gen Z.
Z. And then what's the newest one? The alphas.
The alphas.
Yeah, the A's.
So after 1997.
No, it's after that because Zach's a 2001, so he's a Z. I think it's like 2007.
Yeah. And this is the start of a new generation.
What's that? The B's?
I don't know. Whatever this baby in my stomach is about to be.
We're going to find out soon enough.
It's really interesting. But thinking about how many generations are in the actual workforce.
Yeah.
Everybody brings a unique perspective, has a really critical value.
They do.
And I think a lot of generations get judged for certain things. So let's get into this a little bit.
Okay.
So first, let's break down the different generations, the four primary ones.
Yeah. Yeah, baby boomers, right?
Yep.
Born between 46 and 64. They're pretty much retiring right now. So, fun fact, there are 10,000 baby boomers retiring per day right now. 10,000.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Number two, Gen X, born from 65 to 80. And it's one of the lowest number of generations out there in regards to population and demographics. Number three, Millennials, born between 81 and 96, grew up in a tech boom. And, they're pretty much running shows. They're the VPs right now and moving house. And then obviously Generation Z, born 1997 onward. They've lived on digital media. They've lived on their phones growing up and all too, very different than us and all. God forbid we had a camera growing up. And but it's an interesting mindset. And I think people are trying, what I always tell people is you're trying to categorize 5 different ways of thinking into one. And you have to be careful because it's not a cookie cutter world. And you have to be careful. You can't have everybody thinking like you think.
I know. And I think it's all about agility and flexibility when it comes to working in whatever setting you are, whether you're hybrid, fully in the office or remote, and making sure you're adapting to the needs of the different generations.
Yeah, how do you do that though? Because managing cross-generational is not easy. It is very hard. It's a lot more communication. I don't know about you, but because we are sort of hybrid here, I find that we have to do so much more communication to let people know what we're doing, when we're doing it, how we're doing it, and then get that communication off like 3 different ways.
I know.
I mean,
because everyone processes information differently and it has a different need. And I feel like no matter how many surveys you do, no matter how many conversations you have with people, the thing that every person wants is more communication, no matter how much you get.
Right.
So I agree. I think you have it in every channel to make sure that you're adapting.
Yeah.
But I think one of the most important things you can do is ask.
Yeah.
Like, what is best for you?
Yeah.
You can do it in your stay interviews or you can do it in other forms of, engagement and ask them what works for them.
Yeah, but
think
back
that's more
up,
important.
because I think a lot of people are afraid to ask that question, and they're afraid of hearing an answer because they don't want to hear that answer. So go around it. They're just going to tell you what to do.
Right.
And to me, I'm like, that basically defeats the whole purpose there.
Yeah.
You're going to get a very angry employee, and the last thing you want to do is get an angry employee. And let me tell you, last year, because of the election, nobody was leaving their jobs. They were all basically, what's happening? All hush hush. I'll stay placed until it happens. And I've been warning clients now this year, 2025. March comes out, that first warm day, people are going to be like, maybe it's time for me to leave. So I tell people now, like, all 5 generations have a different way of staying. I think you're going to have your boomers and your Xers who, we worked 50, 60 hours as a normal. Millennials don't want to work that as a normal. It made it very clear to us. And the Zs, they don't mind working, but they like working more than one job.
Yeah.
So they like having a few sources of income coming in, which I don't think as a Generation Z we even thought of back then.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's where people in other generations have to be open.
Yes.
To the way that people want to work, because I think one thing we need to avoid is the stereotypes. Like, I feel like millennials get drug.
Yeah.
There's many different types of millennials too.
True.
So I think geriatric millennials.
Oh, that's a new term.
Yeah, people love to put geriatric in front of things.
Wow.
It's really interesting.
As long as I put it in front of Gen Xers, I'm okay with that. So, yeah.
Geriatric Gen Xer. But instead of assuming millennials will always want to work remotely, or a boomer prefers face-to-face meetings, asking them.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's like what we can encourage our CEO clients to do, because, everybody has a different need.
Me, everything. But you're right. Everybody has a different thing.
Yeah.
You're going into work today, and sometimes, as the millennials are going into now taking care of their parents.
Yeah.
Generation X already has been doing it, and unfortunately, a lot of my friends' parents, like my own, have passed. The baby boomers are thinking about retirement and taking care of their grandkids and making sure that their kids are better off than they are, and that's becoming more of a problem too.
Yeah.
And then you have the Zs who are just getting into the workforce and trying to figure it all out, and it's a lot different. They didn't have the water cooler talks. They have a Zoom. They are used to seeing all that. They have to get dressed up and have presentations and having eye-to-eye contact, which has really been difficult for them to do. So you have to be a little bit more patient now than ever. Yeah. And I still think we're going to have a problem about isolation. Everybody thinks it's cool to be home and it's cool never go in the office. But what happens is it's a very lonely situation, and you're missing out on basically what's happening in the environment, which is why I think a lot of these companies are basically saying RTO, return to the office, and having these policies, and people are like, I'll just leave. Yeah. They actually are expecting you to leave.
Yeah.
If you don't want to be in that mindset, because they want people that want to be in the office with that mindset. If not, you're going to be the bad apple in the bushel.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think about like mentoringship programs, like pairing the different generations together for mutual advancement in the workplace? Like thinking about how like a boomer could be paired with a Gen Xer, and think about what a Gen Xer can actually teach a boomer and vice versa.
I love the idea.
Not that you have, I mean, this is for bigger organizations likely, but it's really the skill set from a completely tech native generation, what they have compared to boomers. But what boomers have is this experience of this personal growth that they've had to work so hard. I think there's just so many things they can teach each other.
I agree, as long as they're really coachable.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes there's an older generation say, well, this is the way I did it. Not listening to that younger generation. It's like, well, what way do you see it differently?
Right.
Because they want to see it differently. They saw the parents working so many hours. They don't want to do that. They want that quality of life. And COVID, I mean, it was good in many ways and it was bad in many ways. And I think basically people want everybody to go back to the way it was. And I think people looked at four walls for, a good 18 months and says, why am I doing this? Why am I here? I could die tomorrow, and why aren't I enjoying my life?
Yeah.
And we were so used to that rigmarole of life that we forgot to smell the roses. Yeah. And now we're smelling the roses, but you shouldn't be guilty for smelling the roses, but the work still needs to get done.
Agree.
Big difference.
Agree. What do you think about when it comes to attacking? Not attacking. Definitely not attacking.
I was gonna say, what are you drinking over there?
Attracting talent.
Yeah.
From the different generations. And, we had a great conversation with someone today, and she's like, I have to wonder Am I not getting the job because of my age? Like, what do you think when you're attracting talent? What do you think are key points when it comes to the cross-generational workforce?
Well, I think a lot has changed. I think a lot of the resumes now are inflated lies. I do think it comes down to your skills. It's not always so much the schooling. It's about what you can do for that company and how you can make a difference. I think you're going to have to really rehearse of what you're doing and how you're doing it and be with their confidence. I think a lot of people don't have the confidence in the interviews anymore. And unfortunately, you don't know if it's live on AI or not. Is it an avatar? Is it really this person? Because I can't tell you how many of our clients are calling us and saying, hey, this is not the person I interviewed. This person I interviewed was amazing. This person now is coming down to putting it on paper, totally different person. Why is that? And so to me, I just feel like going back to the old fashioned routine, like predictive indexes and stuff like that, because you can tell me all you want, but those tests, when you do that, sort of tell me exactly what I need to say.
Yeah.
And no matter what. And so I think having that relationship, being honest about things, but also being real about the position and making sure, honestly, when they do a job description, they should read it back to you, because sometimes I think they say they read it and it's not until you actually put them in place with it that they realize, like, holy crap, I have to really do this stuff. I'm like, we talked about it 5 times.
Yeah.
You do. Yes.
Yeah. That's going to be a whole topic here, I think.
Yeah.
Is how AI is affecting the hiring process. So we can talk about that for, oh my gosh, so many experts to bring on
we
too.
haven't seen anything yet on that. It's going to be unbelievable.
So the other thing I was thinking about is your employer value proposition, which is basically encompassing like who you are as a brand. The way you tailor that to who you're attracting, you know, you have to think about that. Are you trying to bring in people, if you only want, you know, Gen Xers, what are you offering? If you only want baby boomers, what are you offering? Obviously, hopefully businesses are not just going after people of one generation. You need the cross collaboration, but you know, your benefits package has a lot to do with what's important to you as an employer.
Yes.
So thinking about how you can tailor it to make sure there's an option for everyone is really important.
And it's also hard to do.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, the way corporate benefits are all set up, again, can be very cookie cutter. It's like, well, here's the plan, here's this. I'm like, yeah, but my person who's 25 doesn't want to have any of that stuff. Doesn't basically ever goes to a doctor and doesn't really need it. And so, you know, they're not going to want all this stuff with somebody who's 62 wants more stuff and wants more coverage and all too. So again, you want to make sure it's not so cookie cut, but the way, unfortunately, it is out there in corporations and corporate world, they do put benefits like that. So unfortunately, because it's the best rate. So it's really hard. We have a long way to go with employee benefits and really to cater to each individual individually. And someday, you know, I do think you're going to have more of an individual, you know, you have your own policy, just like life insurance, you take it with you.
Yep.
The same thing with benefits. I think we should go more into that world because that benefits might be completely different to somebody else. And I'm never going to be 100% catering to my entire team. But I can say, I'm giving you this stipend, you pick out what you want, you manage it, and you can bring it with you.
Yeah. So going back to the key word for today's conversation is flexibility.
Flexibility.
Is making sure that you can offer, you know, diverse options for people.
Yeah, you try to. You can only do the best without breaking the bank.
I also think professional development, no matter what stage of your career that you're in, is important.
Yeah.
And I think like thinking about Gen Xers and millennials, they may be looking for more leadership opportunities.
Oh, yeah.
How are they going to get there?
Yeah.
And, you know, there's not a clear path for anybody anymore. So making sure companies have career mapping in place, the opportunity to have a coach.
Yeah.
People are so lucky to have an opportunity to have a coach.
Yes.
And I think, you know, but boomers are not good. That's not going to be their main focus.
No.
Right. So it's like you have to have these like professional development opportunities for whatever stage they're in.
They are, but the biggest thing, the new thing I'm hearing out for like millennials and for the Zs is called group coaching, where instead of spending so much money one-on-one, they actually have like 5 people having a coach to coach them at one time instead, because they realize that because they haven't had the water cooler talk, they haven't had the one-on-ones, they haven't had like, you know, almost like initiation phases, you know, so now they have to have these coaches now to move them up to the next level because no one's really taught them. And so it's called group coaching. So it's a benefit for the employer, but also for the employee.
Yeah. No, that's actually, that's so critical to be able to learn from your peers, because when you hear what they're dealing with, it just kind of makes you feel also just some peace in your role, in my opinion, as a millennial.
Oh, yeah. And
geriatric millennial, probably.
Well, again, don't use it for the exercise.
Sure.
Okay? But it is interesting. I think we're in that phase right now where I think it's another whole generation that has to come through before the work environment really trickles into where it's going to go. Yeah. I think hybrid will be here, but hybrid is going to get more and more scarce. I also think you're going to have less full-time remote jobs, only 5% right now on LinkedIn. So I think that's going to get a smaller and smaller number because people want that real estate to be basically put you in your seat. I'm paying for this real estate.
Yeah.
So I see a lot more people doing that. But I also think collaboration is huge, which is missing in the hybrid side.
I agree. I think that's still a struggle that companies are dealing with.
Yep.
I think one of the main things that can bring the generations together is a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
So whether it's a boomer who's getting ready for retirement, who their purpose is to retire and they are going to finish their career, or if it's a millennial who their purpose is to continue to grow and climb the leadership corporate ladder. I think it's important that, as an employer, you're creating a sense of purpose for people.
Totally agree, but I also see for the baby boomer, there's so many baby boomers that are retiring and finding out really quickly because we've been so busy doing so many things and multitasking that it's really hard to turn it all off. And so they're trying to still stay in tune and working this or working now because they can't just sit and read books all day and play golf. And they're like, this is boring me. I can do it for like 6 months, but then I need something more. So it's really saying, do we have that talent that's going to come back into the workforce? Maybe it's 2 days a week, maybe it's 10 hours, maybe it's 20 hours. But I think you're going to see a lot more of that because people are being like, I can't be doing this every day. This is going to drive me nuts.
And they're key leaders.
They are.
In the workforce.
Yeah.
Like they are really critical.
Yeah.
So even if they come back to lead for like mentorship or consulting opportunities, it's a great option.
Oh, it is. But another thing I think is going to basically be a surprise for a lot of companies is they all say they do this, but succession planning. And then all of a sudden they have a huge population of their demographics that are about to retire within 2 or 3 years. A lot of these companies do not have succession plans in place basically for that knowledge management transfer. And that's going to be, I think, a big issue as well.
Yeah. I think HR has a critical role in this.
It does.
Because I had overheard a conversation in the workplace recently about one person saying, "Oh, I had to come back to work after having my daughter. I was six weeks postpartum, and I had to come back because that's what it was." And then I heard somebody else saying, "Okay, well, you didn't have a laptop, and work never ends for them. They're very different generations." Having this interesting conversation about how the workplace is changing and what they had to do, what they both had to do, and how hard it was. Hard to manage a laptop 24 hours a day, hard to come back when you're not ready to come back to work. It's really legit things.
Oh, yeah.
And so thinking about HR's in the middle of this and like making sure you're managing the conflict.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's not conflict yet, but these conversations appropriately, because everyone's kind of like, well, in a one-up mentality.
Oh.
So I think it's interesting that HR is going to be busy with all of these generations in the workforce.
Oh, I agree, but I also think it's okay to agree to disagree.
Totally, I agree.
Yeah. You already have it down solid. I love it.
I don't disagree. No, I do. I think that, but not everybody can do that.
No, but they're going to have to.
Yep.
In order to get along, to make sure everything's happening, you have to be a lot. I spend way more of my time now of just understanding, how are you doing? What's happening? Are you using your talents and all? I would say 20% of my week is usually spent on the employees and well-being, whereas before it was building, and now it's more of like, how are you doing? Is everything okay? And even my people who are never come in, I'm always more concerned about them too, because they think they have it made. I'll have to come in. But I know they're lonely because they feel like they're missing out on things. And when we're all together, they feel like, oh my God, I miss everybody so badly. And I'm like, yeah, but why don't you come in more? And they still, it's easier at home. I'm like, I totally get it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Can't fight it sometimes.
Yeah. And you don't get it sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I won't.
I think here's my strategy.
Uh-oh.
I'm kind of sitting in the middle of this.
Yeah, you are. Geriatric millennial.
It's like this hidden word. I feel very passionate about surrounding myself with people who know things that I don't know.
Yeah.
I noticed my lack of life experience with some of my peers, and they have critical skills that I just don't have yet. And then I noticed some people who are not at the point in their career where I am.
Yeah.
From a technology standpoint.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do you know that?
Yeah.
Because they grew up with a cell phone in their hand as a child. So for me, it's like I can see as a leader what I need to be successful as a department, as a leader, and I surround myself with people that have everything.
Yeah.
It's a good strategy, right? Try to be.
But you're learning.
Fine, yeah.
I'm still learning. I didn't know how to build a business, and here we are. And you could say, what did I learn? What could I do better? I'm like, well, I probably should have said that better, or I probably shouldn't have been like that, because here I'm thinking that they can pick up on it. But, I've been, sometimes insensitive, which I'm sitting there like, I've never been said that before, but it happens, not on purpose, because I was more like
malicious.
Hard knocks because of my dad was like, get back up. You know what I mean? And like, and he hung up on me when I called him one day, and he was like, are you working? Are they paying you money? He's like, you call me later, hangs up on me. And I'm like, okay, that was nice. And
that's something we didn't even talk about, like the way you're brought up.
Yeah.
Could aid in the way work, in the way you work,
how you think.
And so that could be a whole topic.
Well, the average age, which blew my mind away, the average age right now for somebody to start their work to get a paycheck is 19 years old. 19 years old.
It's not 14?
No, it's the average age now. And I think that's also going to hurt us because
that's a really interesting stat.
I was 12. I wanted DoorDash jeans. So
I will never forget getting dropped off in a minivan for my first job. I had working papers.
Just have pictures of that.
I just love,
Meghan, so.
I just love the thought of work. I loved having my own money.
Yeah.
I loved having a sense of, it was like a purpose almost. And I had my little working papers and but
you wonder, growing up, it was a big treat to get a chunky bar on Saturday night,
What's a chunky bar?
Well, they don't have many, but it's a chocolate bar that you would get at Wawa. And, my dad would get the Inquirer, and he would bring home a chunky bar for my sister and I. And it was like a big deal because we didn't have
really
chocolate
good.
all week.
Yeah.
I think because we have such plentiful now that there's no desire to work for it, or before, my mom was like, I'm not paying for those expensive jeans. And I was like, I wanted those jeans. And now it's
What brand were they?
DoorDash, of course.
No, what brand jean?
My jean, DoorDash.
Oh, Georgia.
No. Oh my God, you truly are a millennial. DoorDash.
I thought you said DoorDash. I said, no, what brand jean? What jean?
They don't even make them anymore, Megan.
I don't even know what that is.
They were very popular at the time with the comb in your back pocket, by the way. And it was very important to me to have a pair. But ironically enough, I worked so hard, and when I was ready to save up money for it, I got the money. I couldn't buy them. I bought Gitanos instead because I couldn't see all that money I just worked hard for just a pair of pants.
I know.
And
that's how I feel about lots of things.
I was like, Gitano, and I got a shirt out of it, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, but I feel that way.
It's different how you're brought up. I don't see that, and then they all work hard, and I don't even see kids anymore, try to shovel snow, and I'm like, oh my God, the amount of money that is out there shoveling snow right now, and I never get someone knocking on my door anymore, and that's where Zach made a lot of money with his neighbor, and they come home with all these $20 bills, and I was like, you made that much money today? And he said, yeah, isn't this great?
I pay some big bucks. Well, Joe would never give up shoveling, but there has to be a point where he doesn't want to shovel anymore.
Oh yeah. Well, do it early in the morning when they're not up. So.
Exactly.
But it is interesting. The mindset has changed a lot. And I think that has made the Xers sometimes angry at the Zs because they didn't realize how good they've had it.
Yeah.
But we've also made it very easy for them too, I think. So,
agree.
The ideas and expectations have changed drastically.
Yeah,
so.
I agree. I think what it comes down to sum up this conversation, which I just thought about the funniest thing. I thought about you holding up brands and me trying to guess what they were. We're not that far apart in age, and you said two brands, and I was like, what are they?
Yeah,
which is funny.
Chunky.
But it all comes down to flexibility and how you're treating people and making sure you have, lots of options for people adapting to the workplace. Yep. But this was a great conversation. We could talk about this all day probably, but
we could.
Yeah.
Another great episode.
Meghan. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So thank you all so much for joining us for HR After Dark. We will catch you next time.
Take care.